Yo! Welcome everybody to a very special edition of the FKSC Social Club. My name is Base the Rock. Welcome to my channel. We have two new faces. Uh-oh. This could be good. This could be great. First, I'd like to say hello to the usual panel. Fip, say what's up, man.
Hey, how's everybody? Hope everybody's doing well. I'm doing great. I'm freezing in Jersey. Tom?
Hey guys, what's up? So sorry. I'm excited for today. It's a great day. I can't contain myself. Obviously, you can see
So
that.
big bearded one. Who are you? Say hello and what is your name? And where can they watch you stream?
My name is Tom Shaggy. You know me, the beard. You can watch me on twitch.tv/theTomShaggy, playing all the games. Darkest Dungeon. Obviously, we'll be playing lots of that this week. New update. So excited.
Yeah.
And then we have the beautiful, the talented Chris Bourassa. Hello, welcome.
Okay. I get the mood. Okay.
I really
hello.
appreciate that. I took some time on my hair, so it's nice. Thank you.
Very nice. Chris, what is it that you do for those that might not know?
I'm the creative director and the artist on Darkest Dungeon.
Ooh.
Like, around here, we like to call that it's lit. That's awesome. And then we have Bay, Voodoo Val. Say hello. Sorry.
okay.
Or Mav. Mav left, whichever you want to call
left
it.
left Mav, and
Left
you're
Mav.
right Zot, right? That's
Or I'm
okay.
Fip. That depends on the mood, but okay, go ahead.
Okay.
She was calling me Fip. Fip, I don't know if you knew this. I'm
Yeah.
light-skinned, clearly. I mean...
How does this even happen?
Oh man.
Blame base, that's how it happens.
They were trying to trigger me on Twitter the other day, so I had to give it back to them. So.
So, hold on. I'm a trigger now?
No. They were calling.
Wow.
I took a picture with Mav, and they were calling me Left Mav. They were not calling me by my name, so I was like, "You must be Right Fip." Then.
Val, please tell them where they can watch you at and what you do and all that good stuff.
Yes, I am mostly a creative streamer. My name is Voodoo Val, and I do a lot of fan art, do a lot of digital paintings and stuff, some 3D modeling. And when I'm not doing that, I'm usually playing Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon is kind of taking over my life right now. It's pretty fantastic. And games the like, you know.
Well, that's perfect because there's a new Darkest Dungeon patch out. Oops, sorry, hit my
Yes.
mic. It's called Those From Below. Tom, how you feeling about it so far?
What can I say, man? I've been communicating with Chris for the past month. We've been teasing this to these guys in stream, and the other day I sent him, just final checkup, hey, how's it going? Here's a couple of questions, and I said, hey, man, is there any new content that we can expect? So in the near future, whether it be a new hero and literally 12 hours after that, there was a queue for Darkest Dungeon update, and the Cove is finally out, and I couldn't be happier, man. And not just the Cove, but just overall, there's even a couple new sound bites in there, voiceovers, some new art. It was great. It once again just reinforces there is hope for early access games. We spend a lot of time on this show saying how there's no hope for it, but you guys have proved you're one of the few developers who are really showing us that good things can come from gaining early access to games. So
I agree.
We
Thank
usually
you.
go.
Thanks, man.
We go pretty in depth about how not in depth. Well, you could say that we get let down a lot by early access games, and we've always said your game, The Darkest Dungeon, has always been a front runner or set a standard for early access. So I think all of us could say thank you for that because that's pretty awesome that you guys kept that
Wow.
up.
Jeez. Thank you. I mean, we're definitely doing our best. It hasn't been perfect, and we've definitely had some learning experiences throughout it. So it's not always smooth sailing, but we're really enjoying the process and appreciate that you guys are appreciating it. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we slander everything. Trust me.
Started out with it.
Let's do it.
So I know Val and Tom have a load of questions. Go for it.
Yep. Go for it.
I want that. Ladies first, of course.
Aw.
Please. I mean,
You guys are so sweet. I just want to, because I have a lot of stuff to ask. But first of all, I know how hard you guys are working on this game. Like you guys have been like in like turbo mode, just getting this stuff done. I know there's not very many of you working on it. How do you even stay motivated through all of this stuff to keep working these long hours that you guys are working? Like it's phenomenal the amount of effort and love and time you guys are putting into this game right now. You know.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know. I think having like having like a finite time, like I can say to myself and to my wife and my tiny innocent children that, like it's almost there. We're almost finished. If it was like an indefinite thing, I don't think I could just crunch like that. But because I can see, that like we have a finite amount of content we need to make, and there's an end to it. It's still exciting, and I really enjoy the game and the world kind of thing. So it's fun to spend time in that place. And I'm kind of a workaholic. I mean, I think as an artist, you almost have to be. It's hard to pull myself away when I'm into it, and it's hard to get started when I'm not. But we just kind of have a lot riding on it. So the stakes are high, and it requires a superlative amount of effort. But everybody on the team, has just been throwing themselves at it. So
yeah, definitely shows. Definitely shows.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not done yet.
I hope not.
So,
What?
go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say if I can just it kind of leads into what I was gonna ask first. It was like my fourth question I had, but like we already said, like we spend a lot of time talking about our just complete disappointment with early access games. Have you felt like the pain that I'm sure some of these other these developers have felt trying to get out of early access, or do you guys feel that you've stuck pretty well to your timeline and are on schedule to release your game?
Yeah, schedule is a tricky thing in game development because you can't really like quantify making something fun. Like that doesn't fit within, like 40 hours or 15 hours or whatever. Sometimes really great ideas on paper just don't translate. Other times you get some happy accidents. Generally, I think we're pretty close to where we want it to be. Like Val mentioned, with a small team, our game designer's father passed away suddenly earlier this year. That has a measurable like impact on our schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other personal stuff that's kind of popped up, and you just do your best to roll with it. But we're pretty close to where we want it to be. Initially, we had said we wanted to come out at the end of October, just because we kind of like the kitsch Halloween. That would be kind of a neat time
Absolutely.
to come out.
Definitely.
But here we are. We're about a month away from that. We're further ahead internally than the Steam build is, obviously. But we don't want to just be beholden to a sexy date just because it thematically makes sense. We want to deliver something good. So we're going to push it out a little bit, but our goal is to come out this year. And that's what we've said. So
Right on.
That's awesome. I have a question real fast. Or Fip, did you have one?
Oh no, go ahead.
So I know we're going to probably get into this pretty deeply, but the art. I have one very strong question I want to ask. Was there a lot of inspiration from Mike Mignola from the Hellboy series at all? Because I had the same feel when I read the Hellboy comic books and I see that universe going into it. That's exactly how I feel, and I think you guys capture that very well. I just wanted to know if that was any type of inspiration to you.
yeah, absolutely. There's no question. I actually got introduced to Lovecraft through Mignola.
Nice.
Like he would allude to it, in the letters column sometimes, and I was like, what is going on? So finally I just, dug some stuff up and started reading, and then I got really into like the source material, which is great. But beyond him, Guy Davis, who he did some BPRD for a while, but the book that I always come back to is called The Marquis, and it's like probably one of my favorite novels. Like it's a graphic novel. It's about 300 pages long.
Oh wow.
If you like our game, The Marquis, I can't even say enough about it. It's just superlative stuff. Other comic book artists that I just kind of grew up with, like Chris Bachalo and Victor Kalvachev, and even Joe Mad to a certain extent, although the style isn't there. Like the storytelling stuff is kind of cool, and so I just looked at this game as an opportunity to sort of get away from the trend of digital painting that that kind of has dominated video game concept art for a while, and there's nothing wrong with it. I enjoy doing that stuff, but it was just a chance to kind of reconnect to some of the roots and some of the reasons why I got interested in artwork in the first place, because I just grew up reading comics because I'm old and the internet wasn't really the full version of the internet we have now.
Awesome. I just want to always ask that question because it stood out so much, and I was like, all right, I have to know about that. Cause I mean, obviously, I have Hellboy tattooed on me. It's one of my favorite comic books ever. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. So whoever runs his Twitter actually like favorited one of our tweets back at the Kickstarter campaign, and I have it like print screened and circled and like saved.
Oh, nice.
When I'm
Awesome.
feeling low, I just fire that up and look at it, and I'm like, oh, it's not so bad.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, Base, if I can say, if there are questions in the chat, feel free to put them in there.
You guys have free reign to ask questions, and we'll try to get them to Chris as easily as possible.
Yep.
I wanted to ask, like, because when I first got into this game, I swear it reminded me of like Dark Souls, in terms of tearing me down mentally. I'm like, yes, this is it, and then I'm like, no, what? Oh, okay, all right. You know what, guys? I'll be back. I'm gonna go grab a bottle of rum. We're gonna figure this out, all right? So, like, I want to know, where did you what games did you draw inspiration from? Because it's really intense. It really is.
Yeah, I think the Dark Souls observation is definitely on point. When I'm explaining it, like we were talking about PAX a little bit earlier, and when I'm explaining it at PAX, I would say it's like XCOM meets Dark Souls, because that's just a real quick like elevator way of just getting it into people's heads. But we actually drew more from like classic CRPGs, like Eye of the Beholder 2, Pool of Radiance, Bard's Tale, like those sort of
Bard's Tale.
the early generation computer games where like you didn't get tutorials and you just sort of had to sit with it for a little while and kind of slowly wrap your head around it. And a lot of the fun for me, at that time came from learning how the game worked. It wasn't that everything should be tutorialized and handed out to me, and then mastery was expected from day one. I enjoyed sort of like slowly peeling back the layers and actually growing to understand the game, as I moved through it. So that was something that we wanted to create in Darkest Dungeon, where you sort of, a lot of the learning is this upfront learning curve stuff, but there's a joy to be had from sort of chipping away at that and then finding the chinks and the cracks and building a strategy around that.
I think that's like, I think that's what I love so much about this game, because it like represents my childhood and just life. Like the one thing I love about love and hate about games now is that like you get achievements for everything. And this game is just so brutally punishing that it just represents like everything. Like by the end of like a stream, I'm like sitting in the corner, like scratching my skin, like trying to cope with my because I'm like, everyone just died. Like I don't. Oh my God, it's just so much like it represents like what a game should. Like growing up, I played Super Mario Brothers, and like the games where you had 5 lives, you could get extra ones, but when you were done, that was it. You were
there's no coming back. It's a wrap.
Yeah, and that's what this game is. It embodies everything. Like you can keep going, and there's extra lives to get, but when someone dies, they're gone, and it's like the one trolley game that I can sit through, and probably because I'm playing a computer. If I was playing someone else, I probably would have thrown it away long ago. But
one of our viewers asks if you were inspired by a game called Tunnels of Doom.
No, I've never heard of Tunnels of Doom.
Uh-oh, now you got something new to go on. Look out for.
Hang on, I gotta put that on my phone.
Like writing down stuff that people.
Tunnels of Doom. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So one thing like that I've noticed and I think is really cool is that nowadays, and it's really coming from the indie side of game developing, is that a lot of the stuff that's inspiring guys like yourself and studios like yourself to make games is a lot of these old comic books and like Sandman, The Preacher, they want that type of storytelling. Do you see yourself adding more element as far as like because I remember from beforehand you were asking about some of the New York stuff, and I'm not going to talk too much about it now, but I feel that you guys like to delve in a little bit of the old wives' tales or the things that you used to hear as a child, the boogeyman type deal or things like that. Is that what you wanted to strive for when you made this?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like what you're sort of getting at is like incorporating the unknown into the storytelling. Like when you're little or you're hearing these wives' tales, you never get a full picture of what it is, and so you inject a little bit of yourself into that story. And so for me, it's a lot like comic book gutters, where time passes in the white space between the panels, and your brain fills that in. That's a way for people, I feel like, to sort of get ownership over the story, because there's no right way to read a gutter. It's blank space. It's whatever your brain decides how the action is framed or what's going on. And so for our fiction and our lore, we sort of went really, really light, but enough that you can string things together by looking at different tooltips in the game for certain items. When you face off against a boss, you get a little bit of story. When you come back to town, the narrator kind of talks to you a little bit more in terms of what happened. And just giving people some space for their imagination to kind of take over, and so that no one's ever really sure exactly what happened. They just sort of have their best guess based on their time with the game.
Wow.
And I think if you hit too hard with like a literal story, it erodes that. It makes it objective. It makes it like a story that exists outside of the player and something that they're just learning about, as opposed to something that they're participating in.
Yeah.
And I think that you can hold it closer to your heart if you're a part of it, and then it's not like a completely delineated objective thing. Like those Drake's Fortune games are awesome, but it's a movie, right? It's being told to you, and there's no ambiguity about what happens to Drake. I mean, he's always handsome, so thank God for that. But like, what happens to him throughout his journey is very, very clear and objectively realized. Whereas for our game, we just try to go the other direction, where it's always a little hazy and a little mist-filled, and it's up to you to sort of, project out what you think it's about.
You guys do like just the right amount of that too, especially with like your narration and everything, because that can kind of be like what you guys are talking about with like in between the comic panels and stuff. You're kind of hearing his inner thoughts and stuff of what he was going through, and you always leave his little sound clips sort of open-ended, like the hag that was a beautiful woman and she made repeated calls to the house, and then it ends and you're left to wonder what happens.
You're getting like a moment in time, but you're not getting everything all connected together, and I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
I swear, this was funny. Base and I were talking about this, and I said to Base, I was like, look, I'm not sure if I should be on this because I haven't played the game in a little bit. I'll be honest, I love the game, but you could see it's draining me on cast. Like, I start getting stressed. So I'm talking to Base, and I'm like, dude, I'm not sure if I should be on this. And now that you actually brought this up, I was saying to Base, it's funny, whenever I play the game, I feel like I'm trying to fight my way out of hell. Like I'm not sure, right. That's exactly, I feel like I'm getting pulled down and I'm trying to get out. It's just like, it's great to hear this. Like, it's really interesting.
Actually, you're trying to get in. Right.
Like you went there. You went to the dungeon willingly, bro. Like maybe you didn't bring all the torches. Demo Kritos asks, "What Lovecraft book is your favorite?" Which one's your favorite? Sorry, I asked that.
I was kind of weird. I don't want to be the only one talking here, but my personal favorite is Shadow over Innsmouth, because I like the escape sequence, and he gets out of this crazy town, and then the implications of what the town and its twisted fish people, what that says about the future is really cool. The game is actually more looped around like the rats in the walls, because it has this sort of aristocratic gentleman that restores his old family estate, and it's kind of got something awful underneath it. So we riffed more kind of in that vein, but personally I'm an Innsmouth guy, I guess.
Dope. And then the second part to that question was, will there be any cosmic beings or people beyond humans like in that theme in the future?
We committed from day one never to say anything about the Darkest Dungeon.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
well played.
Nice.
That's nice. I can't. Nothing.
GG. Well played.
All right.
If I could start asking some questions sort of about the new mechanics, if we could do that, because I'm really, really curious, because I know that I played up to the first Siren boss yesterday, and I was terrified and also pleasantly surprised to discover the wonderful synergy between the opponent characters, in here, and I was seeing them work together to defeat me the way I'm used to seeing, me trying to put together these moves and stuff within my own team. So I wonder if maybe in the future we'll start seeing even more similarities between the opponents and our own heroes, such as like evidence of opponents having resolves, positive and negative resolves, or evidence of them having like negative quirks or something, sort of like we have our kleptomaniacs and stuff, or positive quirks and stuff, where some of the characters are like stronger than the regular ones we've encountered before. I wonder if you guys have like some sort of ideas to sort of implement that in the future, if you can say.
I think, even from just like a creative direction standpoint, we don't want to humanize the monsters.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want monsters to get stressed. They exist as like
as a stressor.
purely, and part of the horror is their single-mindedness. I think when you round out fish person A and he becomes like Frank and he's got like a little family of little fish eggs back,
Yeah.
he tends to pick his teeth when he's nervous. Like, you start feeling a little bit like less happy about executing him. So I don't think we're going to go that way, but mechanically speaking, the stuff that we brought out in the Cove is going to trickle, if you will, into some of the other dungeons in terms of like watching enemies like riposte and guard and buff and heal each other. So we just thought it would be a cool way to roll it out in this environment with this patch, and then kind of see where it goes, see what the player response is, and then kind of gauge how we roll it out from there. But yeah, it should be pretty good, because I think I enjoy it a lot more, actually, this dungeon. Just watching them like cross guard each other and buff and heal up. It makes it a little bit more exciting, and I think it makes like stuns and repositions sort of have even more of a place in your sort of skill loadout now with these kinds of things. So that was good. But I mean, it's all still like balancing an RPG is like this ongoing epic task that you'll never get right for everybody. Really, because it's just infinitely complex. So we're still tinkering and tweaking, and that's part of the great thing about early access is getting all that kind of feedback every time we do something. We can immediately see what the reaction is, and archive that, write it all down, talk about it internally, and then kind of use that to sort of formulate our next move.
I think it also really inspires the player to be a lot more creative with their plays and stuff, because your new guardians and stuff doing the protecting and stuff and everything. It's kind of fun when I was playing last night to implement the marking targets, marking guardians, knowing they're going to be jumping in front of the creatures they're protecting, and using my plus damage to marked targets, attacks with my other characters and stuff was very, very cool. So.
That's one thing I noticed with previous playthroughs of, before this update, I felt like most dungeon runs and stuff were basically a DPS race. It was just bring who is going to hit the hardest and the quickest, and even the most targets. And now it's not so much like, while you still need the damage, you also, and we talked really briefly, like early show, that like now you need to stun, now you need to shuffle, you need to know the positioning and where those enemies are going to attack, what they're going to attack with, and then also your own positioning. And that's what I love, like using the Gravedigger a lot of times, and the Jester. Like, they're not the best heroes in my opinion, but they definitely have their uses, and they're like, it's fun to play them a lot of times just because they can jump around a lot. But now more so than ever, like, you might be utilizing those heroes much more than you ever were before.
Oh, for sure. I agree, because my cultist was mostly offensive. When I was using him, I was using all of his attacks and stuff, and now he's not really a heavy hitter anymore. I'm using all of his magical abilities to supplement the larger attacks of my other characters and stuff, and using that sort of behind the scenes synergy to complete the dungeons.
The whole balance aspect of it.
Yeah, where I was just using like double men at arms, just to go in there and smash and tear everybody apart,
Yep.
Will you guys ever think of implementing a pen and pad version of Darkest Dungeon? Because I think that would probably be one of the coolest experiences next to the game. It's like, outside of the game, I think it would be one of the most amazing experiences.
Yeah, we've talked about it. We'd love to. A board game version or a pen and paper version would be super fun.
I have my wallet here. I'm ready to throw money at the Kickstarter when you're ready. We can do this.
Nice. Yeah, it's tricky. There's a lot of things that that we want to do. I've always wanted to like write and draw like a graphic novel of the whole story, almost like a Game of Thrones season about the game itself. But it's just you can't get ahead of yourself. You got to just focus on the game itself, first and foremost. And a lot of that stuff, Val, that you brought up is great to hear. And I still think we have a ways to go towards making sure that it's as even a landscape as makes sense between like damage, heal, support, buff, grapple, stun, like all these things. They need to kind of come into their own and make sure that they have a place in the game. I think definitely when the game first launched, early access, it was really, really easy to just sort of chew through front row guys, and damage really was just king overall. And sort of over time, we've looked at ways of enhancing the other sort of tools in your toolkit, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Someone also asked in chat, how open are you to an aesthetic change to the heart attack to a second tier of a permanent insanity that can be healed rather than an instant death?
We're not close to it. We've been talking about that, like the idea of the heart attack functioning somewhat similarly to death's door. So it's definitely like an ongoing thing. We might experiment with it a little bit. The thing I will say though is, our game is about stress more than it is about, like, let's say gear, or even more than it is about health. And so there is something very, very attractive about filling a stress bar twice and then losing the guy, because you've sort of flown in the face of what the game is about for like 200 points worth, and now it's over for that guy. And so if that's the focus of the game, there should be like dire consequences for flaunting that focus. So I mean that kind of theoretically is where we came from with the heart attack idea, and we didn't like that people could just run around completely afflicted and not care and not be worried about their guys once they were insane or paranoid or whatever. So it's something we're talking about, but we do kind of like the idea that you lose a guy. Too much stress is just too much, and it certainly happens in our source material and Lovecraft like all the time. So yeah, it's just something we're talking about. But we've read a lot of posts like that on our forums, and that definitely filters into our development discussions for sure.
Look, me personally, I think the stress system is great as is.
Like, yeah,
I love because the thing is, to me, right? Like you said, just imagine you just keep going into the place, and then you're like, yeah, who cares? All right, yeah, my stress, it just keeps rising. I start turning on my teammates. Then it's at a certain point that now you're like, you know what? I kind of want this guy off my team.
Yes, very much so. And usually when Tom plays a game, that person's name is Base, but that's a whole other situation.
Base 4.0 or something. I don't know.
It's probably I probably died 7 times in that game.
I'm gonna be. What what I used to do on my channel, I used to actually, whenever somebody died, I would ban them for 10 minutes. Like, you couldn't talk.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
You let me down. You have nothing to offer anymore.
You gotta go.
Take a few minutes, collect yourself.
Yeah, just think about things, because look, are you sure you want to come back into this dungeon? Because everybody's looking at you right now.
No. I know you've probably heard this question asked 100 times, and I know, as far as priority goes, it's not the highest one. But will we ever see an iPad or a mobile version of the Darkest Dungeon, or do you not want to?
Yeah, we're gonna do PlayStation and Vita. That's our next task after we launch the Steam, and then after that, we're looking at mobile for sure. But we wanted, like talking earlier, and we started with talking about those classic computer games. We felt like it was really important to launch on PC first, because that's the tradition that we're trying to like honor, essentially, as opposed to like coming out simultaneously on iPad, or not that we could have even really done it, to be honest with you, but or launching on iPad and then porting to PC. We just felt like we wanted to come more of a direct descendant from that classic CRPG lineage. So.
Also, are there going to be any multiple levels of difficulty that you could preset before you enter the game making process, or no?
As of right now, we don't have any plans for multiple difficulties. It's been brought up a lot on the Steam forums, because it'll always be too easy for some people and too hard for others.
That's what I love about. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject, but that's what I think. I think the randomness of the game kind of like plays like there's been times where I go into a dungeon in the first room that I have to clear 100% of the rooms. I go in the first room and it's done. Like I think that the game itself, like it randomly kind of sets that difficulty.
I love that. That's the best part.
The torchlight as well is something that you can control to adjust the difficulty. We made the heart attacks and corpses toggleable as well. So if you want, a little bit of a friendlier experience, you can go that way. But the game was always supposed to be like kind of unfair. Like sometimes when you go in to clear all the room battles, the first battle, you're like, I brought all these supplies and my guys were full health, and now everyone's dead, and this isn't balanced or isn't fair, and it's not fair.
No, I left the tutorial before with 2 afflictions. I was like, wait, what? Like, how did my guy already get diseases? This is amazing.
Tutorial.
Yeah. I'm like, all right,
that is horrible.
Welcome to Darkest
That's
Dungeon.
part of it, like best laid plans and all that. Sometimes, you can hike up the mountain with the best gear and the best little grips and pickaxes, and you still slip and break your leg. And our game is kind of about what you do once your leg is broken. It's not really that you are owed, a free pass to the top of the mountain, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you can prepare as much as you possibly can for this. You can go and make sure that your characters have like amazing quirk slots.
Yep.
Stuff. Make sure you have like the best trinkets, and then you just run into now even more with the Cove. You run into just a lineup of opponents that's so powerful that you're like, your team's not equipped for this, even if they are strong. They're not quick enough, or whatever. So I really like that, because you can't really. You can prepare well, but you can't get all your ducks in a row and have it stay that way. There's always going to be that element of surprise, and when it doesn't work in your favor, it can be really, really stressful and really frustrating, but it just gives you, a new perspective. It gives you the opportunity to level up another team of 6s and try the dungeon again. So
yeah, before we started, I mentioned poker, and that's kind of, really that analogy holds true here, where you can have the 2 best cards, you can have pocket aces, and the flop comes, and it's like suddenly this is a vulnerable hand. It's not super strong. It's not as strong as I thought it was. Maybe I put too much money in already. So learning when to fold, learning when to run is a valuable skill in our game for sure. And people who are successful, like over the long term, there's some really exceptional streamers out there, like Care Level 0, and he's just dissected the game, and he reliably wins pretty much everything. And that's just good preparedness and knowing when to run away. But he hardly has any deaths.
Predicting very well.
Yeah.
Cthulhu?
Very cool.
What's the name?
I wanted to know, because you guys have released 4 dungeons now, and I'm really impressed with the new artwork for the dungeons, man. I'm loving the foreground art, like the Beard mentioned earlier. I'm loving all of the new monster-specific bodies and stuff that are laying around and stuff. And I'm wondering which was the most enjoyable for you to design and create, and which was the most challenging dungeon for you to do, because they all have like their own look and feel and mood and stuff. So I'm curious as to which one you like doing the most and which one was hardest for you to get out there.
Well, I kind of break dungeons like in production down into 2 parts. There's like the hallways and the rooms. And I've found that like sometimes the halls for a certain dungeon will go really, really smoothly, and then I'll hit a wall with the room art. I think for me the Cove stuff went really, really well for the hallways, and I think it turned out nicely. It's cool to have, like, maybe it's just because it's different, but I enjoyed working in a cooler color palette because everything else is pretty like sweaty. The other ones are definitely warm and kind of like an old like white T-shirt from like a construction worker kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But the rooms kind of stumped me for the Cove, whereas I like a lot of the forest, the wheeled rooms, like with the cabin and that kind of stuff. I think I maybe had a little bit more time at that point when I was doing them, so I could get a little bit more adventurous and do a little bit more custom stuff. But I just remember really enjoying that process, and I'm pretty happy with those rooms, how they turned out. So yeah, I'm trying to get myself psyched for the last one because it's going to be a pretty big departure. So
I'm super excited, man. I can't wait. You guys have done such a good job this far, and I tell everybody too, this game does not play like an early access game. It really doesn't. There's always bugs and things that you guys need worked out and everything, but you guys have like a really fast response time, for updating and getting everything fixed when you release the update. So it's not like another brokenness that you guys release. You guys do a really good job of taking care of it. You guys, like I was saying earlier, you guys are super involved in the community and everything. And it doesn't feel like I'm playing a game that's unfinished when I play it, because of the love and effort that goes into it. And I know that when the full release is out, it's going to be just like mind blowing. But I wonder, what you guys have planned after that. I'm sure you guys are not going to be jumping into like a new game or something, but there's talk of doing like game expansions. Like, you guys going to jump into doing that, like DLC and stuff, or are you guys just going to take
triggered
needed rest?
Here goes the DLC.
We're going to do like a FPS multiplayer.
There it goes.
Darkest Dungeon Zombies.
Yeah.
We want to support the game after launch for sure, and the response has been awesome. So, and it's like it's a real pleasure. We look at it a little bit like farming. Like we want to make a product and sell it to a community, and then in turn be able to just sustain ourselves by doing that. So definitely want to grow the game, the base game, throughout next year. And I don't know what we haven't really thought about what our strategy around that is going to be, but we all know that there's definitely a laundry list of ideas that we haven't implemented yet. So
Rose, it's so easy. I mean, you've taken a concept of like rebuilding a family, town or manor, and then you could go anywhere with it. I think the success of the early access game is going to carry right over into full release, and somewhere down the road, whether it be a few months or a couple of years, like people will want to expand to like other like ancestral places like that need to be revived, and like the success of Darkest Dungeon, and now we need to best the whatever place. I think there's so much more, and man, I'm excited for it. And as we say, I'm here for it all. Like it's here for this.
Awesome. Yeah, one of the ideas that our game designer Tyler Sigmund's really passionate about is like a pure rogue mode where you just pick 4 guys and you just go and go and go and go.
That'd be awesome.
So I think that'd be really cool because it could allow you to sort of competitively rank yourself a little bit.
Oh boy, yeah.
It would require a different like UI and front end, but yeah. So I think there's all kinds of ideas like that we want to explore, and then obviously just content expansions as well for the core game.
Dimira asked, this is what he said: I remember reading that your favorite character mechanically is the Grave Robber. Do you have a favorite character thematically or lore-wise?
Well, the Grave Robber is based on my wife, so I, with the blonde hair and she likes the rogue type things. But I'm a really big fan of the Leper. I feel like his character design is probably the strongest in the game, just because he's all mangled and chewed up, but he wears like the sort of Roman idealized male breastplate with the ripped abs. And, the sword being broken is sort of like another nod to the fact that he's kind of on his way out, essentially. And then from a writing standpoint, he's always just speaking with this really esoteric kind of, amorphous poetry and these non sequiturs, almost like he's got like one foot in the ground already, but he's totally okay with it. So I kind of love that like enlightened warrior monk kind of vibe coming out of someone who just looks like this brutal executioner. So I feel like there's some good contrast and good thematics in him for sure.
I know you're speaking to Dimera's heart right now too, because that is her like in her top 2 favorite people.
Nice.
You've probably seen her artwork and stuff. She does a lot of fan art, stuff just like I do. And that is she's talking in chat. She's like, she knows. Talking about Leper, so
sweet. Well, it's great. All the fan art is so humbling. Like I don't know. I don't even really know how to respond to it. It's just so amazing to see people do work that is, their interpretation of something that you did. It's very, very inspiring and very humbling, to be honest, because I think there's so much talent out there. And even when someone does like a little quick sketch, it's like my shit was in their head for like just that fleeting half an hour, and they just had to get it out somehow. It's I really appreciate what that means to people. So
hard to come away from that game without some sort of inspiration to create, though. Like honestly, that's like I said, that's why I started playing the game at first, because I saw it and I was like, what is this? Like I have to know. Look at this work. I think great,
And I'm not like really huge on art, but that's the number one thing that drew me into this game was the art. I was like, this is something that is completely different from what I'm used to seeing, even on an indie scale. And then, of course, you get that Lovecraft, Hellboy feeling and all the good stuff. But the best part about this, and I think this is a credit to the hard work that you guys put into it as far as details, is that it is its own personality. I mean, of course, everything reminds somebody of something. But what you guys have done is you've polished it down to a point where you guys can say this is our own. And I think that's a testament to all the fan art that you guys are getting. It's inspiring people to that point where they're saying, I love this style. I'm not thinking of anything else. I just want to, like you said, that 30 minutes, I'm going to draw something down and try to make something of my own. But you guys, I think you've separated yourself from the pack in that way. So I think that's pretty awesome. There's a question from Gentleman Cho. He asks, are there any plans for a game over function where you are forced to start a new game?
That one's a little bit tricky. It's definitely been brought up. A lot of people feel like the current game would benefit greatly from a timed condition or like a definitive campaign level game over. We haven't wanted to bring that in yet because we don't have the end game plugged in, and we don't want to have to implement something for now that we have to rip out later. Currently, we're focused on this, you can call it campaign mode. And the roguelike stuff kind of happens in the dungeon, but then on the metagame, you're sort of always kind of inching forward, to a greater or lesser extent. Right now on our task list, we don't have like a task to make the game cut off, or you've lost 50 guys and now it's completely game over. But it's not too late for something like that, and I think a lot of it is going to come out when we start testing the end game internally and just sort of how we feel about it, and what that completion loop kind of looks like. But it's a little bit early, honestly, for us to sort of say definitively, no, we'll never do it, or yes, we're absolutely going to do it. Game development has a lot of dependencies, so a lot of times we have to work backwards in a way. So I have to draw something 3 months ago so that it goes to the animator, to the designer, and by the time we release the patch or whatever it is, it's ready to go. So we're focus firing the end game now, and I don't want to commit to like absolute no or absolute yes, because we really need to get a feel for how that loops around.
Another question I have, will the difficulty that you guys have set as a standard in this game, will it be something that will be known from your studio as far as like, say, for example, the Soul series? Everyone knows what they're getting into when they step in. Is that something that you guys want to set as a standard for you guys, or no? Well,
I mean, it works. It works for this game. Like, I'm not really a huge fan of like non-permissive autosaves like what we have in Darkest Dungeon, but it makes a lot of sense for this game. So studio-wise, if we're going to do a sequel or we're going to do like a spiritual successor, obviously, we wouldn't want to turn around and make it like super forgiving and sunshine and rainbows. But if we wanted to make a sunshine and rainbow game, well, we wouldn't want to make it brutally difficult. That said, I'm not really excited about sunshine and rainbows. So, I prefer working in this kind of space. So I think, like, at least thematically, this is where we're going for now.
Awesome.
Right on.
I have a question. In terms of, like, at PAX, I spoke to a lot of indie devs, a lot. And the one thing I'm kind of, like, getting from indie is, like, they always feel like they're in this, like, a whole nother gaming section. Like they don't really feel like they're a part of gaming. When I spoke to all different devs, when I told them that I cast, they're like, "Oh, you cast? Yes, hop on our game." And I'm like, "But there's tons of other people here that could." And they're like, "No, they're not going to touch the game." I want to know is there something that you think that can change to start bringing indie more to like the forefront and kind of like getting a bigger audience into it, without it having to feel like it always has to have like a special booth? Like at PAX we had the indie mega booth.
Yeah, the mega booth, yeah.
Yeah, and like I just want to know, is there a way for that to like start changing and start getting more gamers into indie?
Doing this, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think it's definitely trending that way. I mean, if you look at it, like 5 years ago, what was an indie game, right? 10 years before that, forget about it. so it's definitely trended in that direction. I think there's a lot more exposure. I think the rise of streaming has been really, really interesting to watch alongside the rise of indies, where it's like they're both almost like grassroots kind of movements. They're, exceptional players and personalities providing, their spin on a gameplay experience for an audience. But it's been I think there's a lot of like crossover between those two groups a little bit, and I think that's why a lot of indies are really excited to get streamers playing their game, because they feel like they're able to reach an audience without brokering big business deals, I guess, if that makes sense. And shelf space is increasingly irrelevant, which is where a lot of times publishers had a greater control over what got made because they could control distribution, whereas with the digital storefront and the internet being what it is, those limitations have definitely eased off. So it's kind of the Wild West right now. But I think, as far as indies being front and center, and the Mega Booth is a fantastic organization, by the way. That's where we got our start in PAX. Like they help you get set up, and it's a huge help, and it does help catapult some people out of the Mega Booth. So I mean, this PAX, for instance, we were on the show floor next to Square Enix, which was like scary as hell, right? But so I think there's a path through that. Games like the Banner Saga, Broken Age, games that are independently produced and funded and developed that find an audience, that get a certain amount of like solid positive critical acclaim. Those games kind of pave the way for people like us. Like I kind of think of us as almost like second generation in that sense. And hope we're going to be the body that somebody else walks over. It's just kind of the way it works. But maybe that's a bit morose, because it is like it's an empowering like cycle, right? And we've got a lot of friends in the indie space. I think there's definitely a culture of like collaboration, and everybody wants each other to succeed. Our price points are so much lower too that we're not as competitive with each other, because for $100 you can get eight indie games, or you can get like one boxed edition of like Halo 56 or whatever.
Yeah,
but it also takes, the future of indie is dependent on, two people. It takes two to tango, as they say. Like, and we beat early access to death every week once again. But, streamers, because it's such a weird phenomenon now, like the more they do it, the more people are streaming and showing indie games, the more they're going to get attention. But the developers need to actually show concern for their game. And that's the thing that a lot of developers have really failed at, and they've actually taken people for a ride. It's like, here, give me your money so I can make a game and not do anything with it, and then take it and do something else with it. Yep. And that is, for lack of a better word, bullshit. Because, I mean, it seems like gamers will never be happy. We always have this discussion too. But, with a game like yours, like I have yet to become sick of it. Like I put it down for a couple of weeks, but it's just because there's other things I wanted to play, and I just couldn't realistically play the same thing day after day after day.
There's a lot of cool stuff out there.
Yeah, but when I got the new update, like I started playing, we did a couple dungeon runs with it. I was stoked, and I want to, like this is where we as streamers are going to back people who are backing themselves constantly, and like I play you guys, I play Ark, I played Edge of Space. Like these guys are actually working with their community to make it better, not become stagnant and boring. So
definitely
the attitude of the studio is a huge deal. You guys definitely have a great attitude and a great presence, and like anybody who watches my stream knows, whenever I go live with Darkest Dungeon, I am like throwing it at people. They'll jump in. What do you think of the game? Should I get the game? And I'm like, yes, because you play this game, you stream this game, they're gonna be here. Like how many games can you say that for, where like the people who were involved in creating this game are gonna like be paying attention to what you're doing and genuinely interested in what's going on, and how you're experiencing the game that they've put out. And
it's like focus testing. I mean, we can't afford focus testers. That's something that like larger companies can do, but the minute the patch went out, we can immediately see people playing it. We can immediately see what they understand, what they don't get. I can watch, somebody steamroll a dungeon and be like, okay, listen, are those enemies too weak? We can talk about it. So just being able to witness your work being like enjoyed or not enjoyed, I mean, it can go both ways. Is really, really enlightening for development, for sure.
Yeah. When you
For
go
sure.
ahead. Go ahead, Pip.
I was just gonna say, I streamed this game on Rise Up Gaming. I did a charity cast with this game, and people told me that was like the best they've ever seen. Like in terms of like for that whole charity weekend, they loved seeing Darkest Dungeon.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That happened, and then I remember like when I first got the game, I must have had like 2 people come in from your team, like I believe the music and somebody else, and I was like, wow, dude. Like the only other time that's ever happened for me was Don't Starve, and like the
Right.
Don't Starve team would just like come in constantly and like always
Clay
talking.
is an exceptional studio. Our booth was back to back with them at PAX. They're
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Awesome.
talking to Dan because they're doing. Dan is making the standalone for Don't Starve or helping with it. Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
Question: when you find time to actually be able to do it, what are games that you like to play right now?
Oh, I don't know.
Time? What's
People
that?
in the dungeon, guys.
I got a few hours into Soma because I was a big fan of Amnesia, and that's pretty interesting. I played Satellite Rain as well, really briefly, because I
Oh, wow.
grew up playing Syndicate, and that definitely feels like it's in the same vein. But beyond a couple of hours, like here or there, it's definitely challenging. I'm really looking forward to finishing up the 1.0 so that I can actually go back and see what I missed, because there was like so much cool shit just dropping like every week. But the irony of making games is that you get less time to play them. But
Got it.
there'll be time for it for sure. I'm gonna become a hermit, I think, when we're finished there, maybe December, January or something, and just like play it all day long.
Bruin Bob asks, does the dev group use streamer highlights as talking discussion points in their meetings regarding bugs and enhancements?
Yeah, definitely. That makes it sound like there's a bunch of us in a boardroom, like reviewing highlights, like a football coach or something. But what'll happen is like, we'll put notes based on what we observe into our task tracking software, and then we just use that to sort of, we'll get on a Google call because we're a distributed team right now. Like we're all in Vancouver, but we're all kind of working from home. So we'll get on a Google call and then kind of go through some of that stuff and talk about how we feel about it, and punt some stuff and act on some other things and that kind of stuff. But it's definitely an active part of our development for sure. I mean, I know it can be kind of frustrating sometimes for people because they give feedback and then they don't see the game change like immediately in line with that. But like I said, development priorities being what they are, we can't always jump on every little thing. But that doesn't mean it isn't like accounted for somewhere or noticed and acknowledged in some way.
And then one other question. There is a Pitch Black Dungeon mod demo asks if there's been any discussion of internally having unique monster mods like an ARPG, such as the buffs to stun resist, plague resist, buffs to damage to crit, and monsters that add marks to heroes.
Like elite versions of the normal mobs?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like the red versions of monsters have been around since like ever and ever.
Gotcha.
So it's definitely something we could look at doing. I think it's a cool concept for sure.
Well, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, just to finish up, like, because I know we're getting towards the end of our time.
Yep. Good.
Are we like, so we just got the Cove. The only dungeon left is Darkest Dungeon. Are we expecting the next big update? If you can say, are we expecting the next big update to be full release, and will we see another hero from that update?
I'm not sure. We talked about just going dark for a couple of months and finishing the game and dropping the 1.0 because there is a lot of like logistics and turnaround behind pushing a build. Like you QA it as best you can for a week or so, it goes live, and then like the last 2-3 days we've just been like trolling Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, Steam, our website, streams, like just mountains of bugs that we just can't possibly find on our own, and then fixing those as quickly as we can. So there's an overhead to pushing a build. So it might make more sense for us to not ship a major content patch until release. But that said, there'll probably be bug fixes, tuning, balancing, that kind of thing in preparation for the big drop. There are some more playable characters. We've got 2 more on the books. One of them is the Merchant, and the other one is a class that was designed with our top Kickstarter backer. So this guy backed us for the highest level tier, and we've been emailing him back and forth. And I actually started the art for it today. It's pretty awesome. Very cool,
Right on.
very cool class.
Nice.
So I'm super stoked about that. And yeah, that's kind of the rest of it. If we can't get to the merchant, for instance, or whatever, we'll just patch it in, shortly after the 1.0, for free or whatever. But they're part of the core game. So
Okay.
Awesome.
Anything left? What? Fip?
I just have are you guys plan to go on Amazon? Like, are you gonna put your product on Amazon, or are you locked down to Steam when it comes to PC?
Steam's not really exclusive.
Okay.
So we could explore doing some other stuff. Yeah, a lot of those business things were just kind of not really like dedicating like full steam ahead on, just because we know that before anything has to happen, the game has to come out on Steam. It'll get other places. We're on Humble. There are other digital storefronts that we're talking to as well. So I mean, obviously, it's in our best interest to get the game as many places as we can. But yeah, kind of one thing at a time a little bit.
All right, yeah. No, I was just wondering because after TwitchCon, everybody spoke about like using Amazon more and more.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I was bummed I couldn't get to get the game as many places as we can. But yeah, kind of one thing at a time a little bit.
All right, yeah. No, I was just wondering because after TwitchCon, everybody spoke about like using Amazon more and more.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I was bummed I couldn't get to TwitchCon. It was disappointing because I wanted to meet so many of these people, but
It was awesome.
yeah.
It was
And
awesome.
why are there so many indie? When did Vancouver become the place? Like, I'm so
Yeah.
Well, all our studios shut down. All our big studios shut down. So you have these people who have 5, 10, 15 years experience, and there's a lot of game design schools and film schools here, so there's a high level of interest. So you've got young people doing it as their first gig, you've got older people doing it as a sort of well, I don't really feel like another studio job just yet. So I think there's just a lot of talent in Vancouver for sure.
Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take a trip out there. Then,
I heard the food's good. I'm going for the food. I don't know about y'all. I think we're gonna wrap it up. I don't know if you have any other things to say, Val, Tom, Vip. No.
I had a question about mechanics, just to sate my own curiosity. But if we're running out of time here,
If it's a
I
quick
don't know
question,
if I
do it.
wanna-
Do it quickly. Go.
I just wondered if you guys had thought about doing something for durability of trinkets and weapons and stuff, where you're having to go back and repair stuff. Maybe trinkets after they're used for a certain amount of runs, start misfunctioning. They're not working properly anymore, or you're having to go back to the shop and repair your armor, that sort of thing, after a certain amount of runs.
Or selling them, because I have about 18,000 trinkets.
Yeah. Take a second look though, because they changed a lot. You might not want to sell some of the ones you thought you wanted to get rid of.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I don't know that it'll get in for 1.0, but we've also talked about things like finding items that the blacksmith could use to mod your hero's weapons and things like that. So like I said, we just have a pile of ideas.
That's dope.
Probably not going to get in for 1.0, but that's some of the stuff that we can start pulling from next year and just kind of growing the game.
You'll see, or whatever.
Definitely a possibility for sure.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Well, I think we learned a lot. I think a lot of people are going to want to see this eventually, because I think he slipped some things in about the merchant and all that good stuff. I just want to say thank you very much, Chris, for taking the time out to be on talking to us. I appreciate it big time.
Thank you. I appreciate being able to chat, and you guys' level of enthusiasm for the game is really inspiring. So I definitely appreciate the opportunity.
It's lit.
Awesome.
Well,
Good to meet ya.
we will be on next week, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on this channel. We hope to see you. Yeah, that's all. You guys have a great night.